It's not a podcast episode or anything. This is just extra video I'm doing. Because I was thinking the other day about my intellectual attraction podcast and how I said how intellectually attractive the uh the ass feature was on the videos that you see on YouTube and how attractive that is because of how perfect it is because it's written out by AI. So I was just thinking, why don't we just see what it has to say about it? So this is what the perfect and very attractive summary of AI has to say about this video in particular. Just like the video about the comments, I'm interested to see the comments about the video about the comments. So let's see what this says. Very, very, you know, spot on computerized thing. It's like a human, but it's not. It is so expertly designed. I have a whole podcast episode about AI, and that podcast episode was clunky because the sound went out and Mercury was stationary, and I'm not going to redo that. I put my blood, sweat, and tears into that recording it, so it is what it is. It is, the videos like that. It's just as I am not redoing it. I put so much time and energy into that. It would not be the same if I had to go back and redo it. So I just figured I'd read to you. Maybe I'll feel bad doing this video. Maybe this is not even a good idea, but I just figured, why not? So in this podcast episode, Trevor Curdy discusses intellectual attraction, defining it as a non-physical draw to a person's mind, ideas, intelligence, and ways of thinking, rather than romantic or sexual engagement. He clarifies that while his initial thought was attraction to subjects, which, well, here's the deal with it. I looked it up on Google and I thought that when I looked it up on Google, I didn't think that when I first thought about it, but I thought that I didn't read it carefully when I looked it up on Google and I thought it was subjects. But then I looked it up again and I was actually right all along that it was an attraction. So I figured, well, that makes perfect sense now. So, yeah, it was not wrong about that. I just wasn't very clear with what I was saying about it. So that can be a little bit misleading, I do have to say that. Um, well, and it's using its own self. What about that? See, it's referring off of it to its own self. The AI definition continued it can be applied to both people and subjects. Well, they're really uninhibited with what they refer to. And then some examples um, of intellectual traction that I described in the video that maybe I'll go further in depth about because AI is a machine. It is not, me. It is not, human. There is some mistakes to it, and there is some misperceptions to it, even though it's expertly designed. It was not clear in the video because it only bases it off the video. So some videos are going to be clearer than others, and others not. So this is kind of another way to kind of clarify things, I guess, although that's not what I intended when I clicked on to film this. So, the very first thing that it summarizes is Josh Groban's voice. Sound of his voice is very, very attractive in an intellectual way. Like intellectually, the sound of it is very, beautiful, very handsome. I would say attractive. Um, and it does say it does include the detail of getting distracted, although I didn't I didn't make this a big point, but it's putting it in there. But the other that he often gets distracted by his voice itself rather than the context of the singing. Well, at first, I think I can focus on the words and fine and and understand that. But but it is a very attractive voice to listen to, and I do get caught up in that. But I wouldn't say I miss the words. Well-written content doesn't say anything for that. The next thing, which is going to be very just incredible to talk about, incredible. That is even putting it in there. Wow. Again, uninhibited. There's no boundaries to it. They just put whatever is in the video. Describes how a short, well, okay. He describes how I assume something. He describes how a short AI video of a man in a World War II outfit evoked a strong intellectual attraction due to its realism, which is true, making the AI generated person seem like a real human with a story. That's how I perceived this person. Real human, has a story in World War II, etc. He also finds AI writing intellectually attractive because of its perceived perfection and legitimacy. You don't say. Perfect. And you even said that perfectly and legitimately. Well, it's funny then. Yeah. I'm sorry, but okay. The speaker also delves into his internal voices when reading. That was a big point. That was a point that I wanted to emphasize, which he considers a form of intellectual attraction. He identifies too many voices. Now it defines it. But you're gonna have to go back in the video to hear the whole backstory of those voices because it only explains so much. I go and you're gonna have to see the video. I'm gonna put the podcast episode below. You don't have to see, you're not obligated. But it is very, very interesting. And I do want to say one thing that it does not talk about is I do define sexual attraction in my version of sexual attraction only to differentiate it from the intellectual. So that's what I do start out with. So just know that before watching this. I won't do this with every video, but I'm doing this with this one because I mentioned the AI and how eloquent really wrote the text. So that's why I'm doing this. I just thought it would be fun to do this. So, the first voice that I describe in the video is Gregor. Basically, a stereotype. That's the name I give to the male voice in my head, not a character that I came up with in my head. But that's just the name I associate with just the male sounding voice quality in my mind, based on the character Gregor from the book Gregor the Overlander in the Underland Chronicles series, which was recommended to me by a family member. Thank you for recommending it to me because that was such a great book. This is an exaggeration. I almost really just loved the book. It was so good. The voice appears when reading fiction by male authors or informational text on AI, history, psychology, philosophy, especially philosophy. I think that would probably show, like, I just gave the idea of philosophy. I didn't make it a legitimate thing. I just like you occasionally just throw things in. AI does not understand the throwing things in part. It just takes every little thing, just makes it, oh, this is what person said, and it was made to be legitimate. Like, no, it is a computer. And even though it's written legitimately, there's still some flaws in it. There's still very minor flaws in it. I do have to admit. Spelling is wrong on this. Spelling is wrong. That's another flaw. Luxa is spelled with an X, not a C. That's Luca. There's a difference. I did not say Luca. That was not the name in the book. Another thing that I just wanted to clarify is this female stereotype that I get in my head. It's like a fairy tale, you know, stereotype, like, that kind of thing. I don't know. A female voice based on a character named Luxa, not Luca. The voice emerges when reading books by female authors, fiction or content related to spirituality and astrology. I especially noticed the female voice coming up in there. It was right about that. He expresses how he initially resisted these internal voices, which is correct. I did resist these voices. Um, they were kind of foreign. They were, yeah, I was not friends with them, but I became friends with them. And I said one of my podcasts, I exaggerated this. Mercury was retrograde. I wasn't clear on my communication. On the podcast episode about the voices in my head, I said, this is an exaggeration. I fell in love with these characters. I did not mean I actually fell in love with these characters. I'm exaggerating my own true feelings about this. This is not how I truly feel about these characters. I'm about these, not characters, but these voices in my head. I don't fall in love with them. I was just exaggerating my own feelings into something that was not true. The true answer is I've just made friends with the voices and I've accepted them. And that's the truth of it. And I want to leave it at that. I don't want to make things exaggerated or positive exaggerations, negative exaggerations I've experienced. Both positive is better, negative is no. But any exaggeration, I'm just no. And 2018 introduced the positive exaggerations to my understanding. So anyway, he expresses but he has since learned to accept and even befriend these voices, viewing them as integral parts of his reading experience and extensions of his own humanity. I did say that, well, again, I didn't say that. I said that these voices were like humanity. Maybe they make me more connected to humanity. But when I hear these voices in my head, it is like all of the males of the world, the young adult male American, males, especially using words like we like in choral music, come together into one. And all the female fairy tale young adult stereotypical in America come together. And all the spiritual ones come together. Those spiritual young adult middle-aged females come together in America. American and come together to form these voices. So I could go on, but there was question after question after question, and that would take long, and that would be an endless process of going through question upon question. You get the point, you can click on the Ask feature, read these questions, find out the answers. This is an interesting podcast, and I would really encourage you to watch this and another podcast that I made just today that I think that you'll find interesting if you're interested in me and learning more about me in the Real Me podcast is the one I made about me not being like other people my age. I go into all the reasons why I feel like I am different than them. And I think that if you're understanding my channel, I think that that's a very, very important episode to watch. I will warn you that there are a couple personal episodes. The one about the voices is very, very personal. The one about the two uh, uh, friendships, two draining friendships. it just kind of crossed some boundaries because I discuss the personal details of others and all this kind of things like that. And I do name some specific things. And then I added to the title of another one, which is kind of an important one, even though it is a long one. I was listening to it going, oh my gosh, this is long. Who is going to listen to this whole thing about you telling your wife? But I did it, and I'm not going to do it again and change it. There were three issues going on between 2019 and 2025. I couldn't talk about them separately. It just makes sense to talk about it in one. The whole idea behind it was Saturn, progress Saturn. Since I found out that it wasn't realistic, I thought, well, I'll just make a podcast over these years. So, and I made a podcast over that because it was just not one issue. The three were going on simultaneously, together. And so I wanted to do the three at the same time. So it is long, and maybe I will consider time stamping the video a little bit, maybe. But if you click on the video, just, want to hear all about my life and how I was caught in self-criticism because I do go deep into my life and everything that goes on. It is a long, drawn out episode, but it is very, very important because it covers so much. And it saves me from having to make one podcast episode, another podcast episode. Da, 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 da. Yeah. Um, no, I don't. I'm not gonna. I don't think I'm gonna plan on like, oh, I'm gonna make one podcast episode about this, and then right after I'm gonna do this. I will maybe. Well, I don't know. No promises, but I'll try to. I want to try to combine the two into one. Excuse me. Likely it will be. So, um, and oh, if there was an AI feature underneath this video, an AI feature under this layer upon layer upon layer upon layer, that'll be amazing. Anyway, I better get off now. Um, Thank you for tuning in to this little impromptu video. And for now, I just thought I'd just do this as it's just extra thing that I just wanted to do. And tune in for episodes of the Real Me podcast whenever I do feel inspired to do the episodes, and tune in for my podcast for the Fastness of Google. So anyway, bye for now. I'm trying to stop this, but okay, here we go.